If you are on our webinar for anything other than a discussion about Google Analytics, then this is the time to leave. We will be talking about Google Analytics and some cool stuff today, and tying measuring metrics in your website into the stuff that you're either paying for or doing organically or trying to work hard to make sure that your business gets found and all the leads and sales and businesses and all the fun stuff that comes with that. So I usually start off with a big picture to kind of give you a starting point, so we can all kind of work from the same foundation. Probably you are in an organization when we talk about marketing and digital marketing, you're probably in an organization that has mixed opinions on what work, what's supposed to do. Some people feel more comfortable with what they call traditional. Some people like to push the envelope with digital. And if you're a marketer for an organization, you find yourself in this political battle sometimes and trying to navigate, where do I put money and how do I satisfy either my boss or the people writing the check. And so if that's true to you, then you're normal. I hear that a lot. You probably have some sort of pressure, whether it be internal or whether it be from those same folks, to do something digital. I have to be on Facebook because everybody else is, or I have to get involved in Google because someone told me to, or I have to do this because, again, you're normal. That's a conversation I have quite a bit. You probably feel sometimes that you're running on a treadmill. You're trying to keep the website updated. You're trying to keep Facebook posts going. Your monthly email newsletter goes out 3 times a year. There's all kinds of things that you have on your GI wish list, but every time you start to focus or get started, requests and priorities and problems and fires really kind of get in the way, right? And again, all of these things are things that I've heard, talked about, and seen on a regular basis. So congratulations, it makes you absolutely normal, right? There's not enough hours in the day. So you end up defaulting to the easiest or most comfortable path in marketing. And that tends to get the most attention because it's most intuitive going forward. So this is why we have these conversations about Google Analytics specifically, because if any of these or all of these feel true to you, then we want to get to the point where you can answer the big question, right? Either to yourself or to somebody that is asking you or holding you accountable. They can see that perhaps you're spending money or you're spending your time, which to someone equates to money. And they're asking you, are you getting benefit? What's the ROI? Is it working, right? And you sometimes have to shrug and say, I don't know, right? So what I want to do today is give you some tools where we can help you answer that question better, right? We want to give you some ways in which you feel confident in knowing that something may or may not be working. You can actually point to some metrics that allows you to support that position, and it allows you to do more of what you see is helping you and less of what may not be, right? So for those that haven't met me, my name is Kerry Weston. The one personal slide here in the deck, that's my wife and I on the left, and my tribe on the right. I have 3 kids, 17, 11, and 9, that keep me busy. And it's amazing to me how digitally sound they are compared to where I was just even 10 years ago, right? So they live in a world that's much different than where we grew up, and that's the next generation of workforce. And so all of this digital stuff leads to bigger questions in terms of how are customers finding us? What do we do? How do we measure? What do we spend our money? So in essence, what's happening is your website is getting traffic from a variety of places that can be measured, right? Whether it's search engines or Google ads or social media, or maybe you have an email. I put TV, radio, and print on the bottom because there's actually ways for you to use the analytics tool to measure what's happening to your website with stuff that's not online, right? So there is a way for you to measure web traffic specifically. We're talking about web traffic that comes from television or radio or print efforts, right? And I should say as well, I do not want to have this be a complete lecture. So any questions pop up at any time, please use the Q&A or the chat. I've got them both opened and I'll answer them on the fly. I want to make this as valuable and as interactive as possible. So the ability for you to track what's happening and who's coming and where they're coming, what they're doing is what analytics is all about, right? So today's plan, we're going to go over the basics. We're going to go over some terminology so we can all kind of start from the same point when we talk about where we're going and what we're talking about in analytics. Then we're going to take a look at how you can measure and kind of review and analyze traffic sources. We're going to take a look at some of the interesting ways that you can find out about your audience. We're going to talk about landing pages, and I'll define that in a minute. A landing page is a really good metric for me to see the intent of the user and to see what's getting visibility. And then we're going to talk about conversions and goals. Perhaps the most important piece of analytics is the ability of having goals and conversion, which are really easy to set up, very straightforward. And I will show you how you take care of that. Can the presentation be archived? I'll answer later. This is my technical weakness. I mean, this is the ability for me not to know the answer at the moment. So I will certainly find out. If not, then I will get you a copy, absolutely. So let's start, shall we? The basics. So in Google Analytics, basically there are two labels. There's dimensions and metrics. And dimensions is basically just a name of something, and metrics is a number. So the ability for you to see how your site is performing uses dimensions and metrics. So dimensions would be a label, right? It might be an adjective. Metrics would be a number that you can apply towards that to see what's happening from a math point of view. Users, there are a couple different visitors, and users get used kind of interchangeably sometimes with Google Analytics. A user is basically somebody coming to your website. A unique user or a new user, a new visitor, what happens is Google will say, this person coming from this location on this device is a user. If that's the first time you've been to the website, then Google will say that's a new user. And so you can see if there are new people coming to your website that haven't been there before. Nothing that I'm about to tell you is absolute science and gospel, so you need to know this. These are all generalities and trends because Google is never black and white. The reason I say that is if I come to your website from my office on my laptop, then that's a unique user. If I go home, right, and I'm at a different location on a different device, it's also going to say I'm a unique user, but I've been to your website before, so it's not an exact science. When we look at sessions in the report, a session is just a visit. That's your time on location with the website. So it's my visit to the website and it's measuring what I do while I'm there. So a session, let's just think about it as showing up, right? It's a visit. Dates. All of the reports that we're going to go through, you can be flexible in terms of what you're looking at for dates. So you can look at yesterday, you can look at the last week, you can look at the last month or year. And then what's really cool is you can compare that. So I do a lot of work with clients where I take a look at the last 30 days of what's happening because we have specific goals or campaigns. And if we've been working them for a while, I can say, here's what October looked like. And then I can also compare that to last October because businesses tend to have similar trends and ebb and flows in the way in which customers and business interact, right? So I can kind of say, listen, I can show you what happened in October and let's compare that to last October. And then the bounce rate, when we get in there, the bounce rate is literally people that visit your site and never go to another page other than the one that they landed on. So if I land on your site, if I go to one page and no more, and I kick out and go somewhere else, that's considered a bounce. And a bounce rate is simply how many people, it's a percentage of all the people that came, how many people left, and that's your ratio going forward. So those are just some basics that we talk about as we get into the analytics report. I just want you to know what those words mean. And this is where, there we go. The squirrels don't work so good sometimes. So visitor's path, any questions on the basics? I don't see any pop up, but again, please just shoot them up. So visitor's path, I'm gonna go through this in a second, and then I'm gonna pull up, I'm gonna minimize the presentation, and I'll pull up a demo Google Analytics account, and you can see what visitor paths look like. And that's why I want you to have yours open so you can interact with it as well. So visitor's path is how they got there. So ways in which people come to your website. So there's a number of them. There's social media, different accounts, Facebook and LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you're at, social media can be measured to see who's coming to your website and from where. There's search engines, the Google being the biggest one, but don't forget about Bing and Yahoo and whatnot. And an interesting component to COVID, we've seen clients have more referrals from Bing, more people on desktops at their house, and Windows, I think, defaults to Bing as its primary search engine. And so there are some advertising and search opportunities in Bing. It's a much more lower used search engine, but we're finding that for business to business anyway, a lot of systems around Windows that are bringing in traffic that could be valuable for you. Referral sites are places other than search engines that bring people to your website. So it could be a directory, it could be a chamber listing, it could be an association, it could be another website that you link to, could be a news article. And again, none of these are absolute black and white in science, because I've seen social media show up in referrals and all that kind of stuff. But again, generalities, this is what we're talking about. In paid campaigns, so when you go to Google Ads or you pay for another source, you can see how those campaigns are bringing traffic to your site. So I'm going to minimize this for a second, and I'm going to bring up a demo account for analytics. So I'm in acquisition, all traffic, channels. And the channels here on my date range, I went back to beginning of October just so I could get a larger sample, right? And what I was just showing you is in this, here's organic, and this would be someone using a search engine. There's the amount of users. There's the new users next to it are the first timers to the website. And then from the basics that we were talking about, there's your bounce rate. So 41% of the people that came landed on one page and didn't go any further, right? So they bounced, they left. In this particular screen, I can see that the average person that came from organic looked at a little over 5 pages per session, and that would be the 5th column over. And then the average session duration, which is how long the average person stayed, a little over 3 minutes. Again, take these with a grain of salt, because someone that visits your site and leaves it open for an hour is going to skew the metrics. So again, don't ever look at this as black and white, just look at trends. And then these are basically the ways in which people, again, in closing, this is the ways in which people come in. Another one underneath acquisition is interesting is source and medium. So this will tell you a little bit, same information, just kind of in a different way. So it'll tell you that instead of saying organic, it's now telling me that it's Google organic. So I can take a look at what happens when people come from Google. I can see what happens when they come from CPC, means a paid, right? That's a cost per click. That's a paid campaign. I can see it's coming from another organic site. So there's all kinds of things that you can see in here. But basically, what you're looking under all traffic, either sources or channels, are the way people come to your website. And here's the metrics. Now, I talked about the dates. If I come back up to the dates and I want to see just October, I can do that. If I want to compare it, I can compare it to the previous period, which would be the previous 30 days, or I can compare it to the previous year, which would be 2019, which some of us wish we were back in, right? So if I hit apply, what you'll see is the reports are going to change. So now I'm seeing, if I go down to Google Organic, I'm seeing here is the data for this October. Here is the data for last October, right? And here's the differences going forward. So you can start to see how many people are coming to your site from certain sources this year versus last year. If you've been paying attention to a certain service or trying to promote something specific, this is a good way to see if that's moving the needle, right? So if I was putting more effort, for instance, into social media this year than I was last year, I would hope that I would be able to see my report generating more traffic, right? So again, going back to the first screen, when someone's asking you, is this working, or can you prove it? And you've been spending 50% more time on social media, if you can show that you're generating traffic to the website, that's a great metric to show someone that's holding you accountable that, listen, I'm putting more effort into social media. And yes, it is. It's bringing people over, and I can prove it. I can show you what they're doing and whatnot, okay? And then a little later down, I'll tell you how to prove if you have an inquiry form or a contact form on your website, and that is one of your goals, right? A lot of us are looking for leads or questions through our website. That form can be tracked, and that's called a goal or a conversion. So I can actually show you how, if you are pushing traffic to your website and people are filling out the contact form, you can show metrics to measure not only how many people are doing it, but where they came from right here. So I'm going to move on unless there's questions on sources. Audiences. So another metric that we can see in Google Analytics. Again, this is, so Google knows an awful lot about you, but again, this is never, I'm going to say this probably 18 more times, but it's never gospel, never black and white. But Google collects information like no other data source in the world. And what that's good for is you can start to see some trends and behaviors to the types of people that are coming to your website, okay? So who are these people? One of the things you can start to see is age. So if Google's able to grab data on somebody, they can see their age if they have a Google account. There are reasons that for security purposes, or if you're incognito, or any number of settings, there are ways in which you can hide so Google is not gathering it. But for the most part, Google's gathering an awful lot of data on the majority of people on the web. You can take a look at gender, you can take a look at interests. Now, here's something interesting. If you are getting into Google ads, okay, into paid ads, Google has two classifications that it groups people into, and this is very big brother, but it's watching what you do online, okay? And it's measuring you against other people, and it's categorizing you. So they're going to say that Joe Smith bought a house this year, and before he bought a house, he went to these certain sites. Maybe he went to a mortgage company, maybe he went to a real estate company, maybe he looked at a moving company. So they can see patterns of behavior that lead up to an action. And so they say that that guy looks like he is buying a house, okay? So they will actually take those patterns of behavior and start looking at what they call in-market actions, and that's one of these lists here. So they can actually predict. This is very much like that Tom Cruise movie, right? I forget the name of it, but the one where they were predicting crimes before they happen. So Google can actually come in and predict things before they happen based on your surfing patterns, okay? So what's very cool about that is, besides being creepy, is the in-market actions. Is Google is saying, this guy looks suspicious. We think he's about to buy a house. And they'll categorize him as in-market as buying a home or looking for a home. Well, if you are advertising in Google, one of the things that you can do is you can say, hey, listen, I want to advertise in this geographical area, but I'd really like to get those people that are in the market to do X, okay? And Google says, yeah, I know some of these people. And so I'll make sure that your ads are in front of people that are in the market to do X, right? So new or returning also. So again, are they new? Are they returning to your website? Have they been here before? And then why this matters is you can start to see some patterns of behavior. Let me give you a very, for instance, story. Working with an e-commerce company that makes doormats out of lobster rope. So their family is a lobsterman, and they took the ropes and they make product. And what we found out was they sell online. And what we found out was if somebody was a returning visitor or returning customer to the website, we knew that they were likely to spend almost 3 times more in the next purchase than someone coming new. And so by that data, we said, okay, it's very important that we get people to come back after they've purchased. So what we found was the best way to do that was once somebody purchases, get them into an email program, stay in front of them and bring them back, because we know that the data shows that returning customers to the website are going to spend more in their second purchase than they did in their first. And that's one of the ways in which we use data to kind of turn into actions, right? So again, back to the accountability. Does it work? Are you making money, right? This is a measurable and concrete way for you to say yes, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna try and switch again. So we'll go up to audience, and as you expand the audience tab, you'll see some stuff down in here. Okay, so here is a demographics. By demographics, I can take a look at some age patterns, and just for the sake of keeping it clean, I'm going to go up to my date and take off the comparative button just so I can get less data on the screen for you guys. So again, I'm looking at October 1 to October 31st. So this is the month of October 2020. And I can see that as far as people that Google knows about, these are the age groups that are coming to my site. And I can come over here, and on this particular one, I'm looking at bounce rate, and I can say that it's pretty consistent. So there's really nothing here that stands out, right? Even the pages per sessions is pretty close. But sometimes where this is important is you'll see that one age range in particular is either far more or less engaged, right? And so you start to say, okay, so I know that if they're 35 to 44, they're maybe more engaged and more likely to do X, Y, Z, and maybe more likely under transactions. This is an e-commerce site that you're looking at. So transactions are actually orders. So using this data, I can say that in the month of October, there were 6 transactions from the 25 to 34, which was the most, right? There was none from 65 plus. So I know that my activity in this, the 18 to 44 is really where my activity is coming from. And those are really the people I want to talk about. And those are really the people I want to bring to my site. I talked about interests. So there's 2 really that matter here: affinity and in market. So in market, I told you about, this is the Minority Report stuff down here. And you'll see as we come in, it'll start giving you some in market. So this person is in market for business and marketing services, in market for employment, in market. There are over 3,000 in market categories that Google tracks and puts people into. And if you're interested, shoot me an email. I'll shoot you a couple of links that you can take a look at and see how expansive this is. But essentially what's happening is, looks like the majority of people coming are in market for some sort of advertising and marketing services, okay? And again, you can take a look at how many users, new users, sessions, bounce rates, all that kind of stuff. The power of Google is combining some of these dimensions. So this would be a dimension, this is a label. And as I mentioned, these are the metrics, right? These are all the numbers. What I want to do is I want to say, okay, I'm going to click on business and advertising marketing services. I want to get a little bit more data on that market in particular, and it's breaking it down by some age. I do this a lot. I go to my secondary dimension and I want to see under acquisition, I want to see the source. So these are the people, again, in market for business and advertising services. And it's telling me that the majority of them are coming directly. Here's my organic traffic. Here's some partners. So this is another dimension that I can log into to get a little bit more data and drill into that particular in-market segment. So I know that the majority of them, being 25 to 34, are coming directly to my site some way. And again, I'm going to say it again. It's not gospel, not absolute. It's not black and white. So they've got a link somewhere that they've used over and over again, and that just might be bookmarked. It might be a website that has a link, right? But the organic activity here, I can take a look at, and I can start to see if there's any patterns of behavior. And you'll see interesting stuff as you go through your own. If you're into the sales funnel, so the top of the sales funnel all the way down, the top of anybody's sales funnel in business is basically general people with a pulse, right? So if you have 2 legs and a pulse, or just a pulse, actually, you know, perhaps you're a potential customer, and then you work your way down to know, like, trust, and buy, right? And then repeat customers. The in-market audience would be pretty far down in the funnel. These are people that are looking for something that you offer. They've shown characteristics to be in the market, to be a potential customer for you. Affinity categories is the other way. Affinity categories is very generic and very top of the funnel. So these are people that like technology. These are people that like travel. These are people that like value shopping. They're not demonstrating any behaviors that they're looking to buy something now. They just happen to have behaviors in the past that says they like certain things, they visit certain websites, they engage in certain actions that makes them part of this group. And again, as you're coming into using Google Ads and other Google products, you can say that if the majority of people come to my website love media and movie lovers, right, then I can focus on movie lovers and light TV viewers and music lovers as I'm putting my ads together. Just gives you another track to be very specific in who you want to talk to. So a landing page is the very first page they saw on your website. Now, here's the cool thing. Back in the day, right, way back in the 2010s, the strategy for Google, and you've heard optimization or SEO, search engine optimization, the ability to get your site found and ranked on Google, right? Back in the earlier days, you could fake it, you could keyword stuff, you could just put a bunch of words on a page and hopefully you'd be found. Google's gotten a lot smarter as they get older, and they are using advanced algorithms now to read websites like a human, using all those artificial intelligence tools that you see in IBM commercials. And they are now getting really specific with how they rank sites and how they reward you or how they penalize you. I say that Google is the code enforcement officer of the web, right? They make the rules, and because they own the biggest products in the world, you can snub their rules if you wish, but if you want to play in their playground, going by what they respect and offer as best practices is a good thing. Why do I tell you that? I tell you that to tell you this. When you search for something in Google and there is a match between your query and a company, right, or a company's website, what Google really wants to do is deliver a result that is as close as possible to the intent of your search. Okay. So for instance, if we were using an advertising and marketing company like Sutherland Weston, and somebody was looking for digital marketing services, okay, and they were searching for, and maybe they were even an engineering firm, so they were searching for digital marketing services for engineering companies. I happen to have a page for that on my website, and Google knows this. And so when someone types in digital marketing services for engineering firms, it's not going to bring up my web page, my homepage, as the preferred page that it offers that user. It's going to bring up the page that literally says digital marketing for engineering companies. Google wants to deliver as specific an answer as possible when you are searching, okay? That page that they bring you to, if you click on it, that's the first page that you enter my website on. So if you were to search digital marketing for engineering companies and my page pops up and you click on it, the digital marketing for engineering companies would be your landing page. That would be the page that you entered my website in. Now, for most companies, mine included, the most popular landing page is going to be the home page because that's the one that gets served up the most. But Google tries really hard to be specific. So the first page they land on, the first page they see on your website is called the landing page, okay? Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because there is no black and white way for you to see in Google Analytics what people are searching for and what they use for queries anymore. They used to give you that data, but they got smarter because they're an advertising company now. And so they want you to pay for that. And so they pay for that through Google Ads and other ways. They used to give you searches all the time. You can see some generic stuff, but not as specific as you used to. If you are a law firm, okay, or an architect firm, I see Landon's on. So let's say there's an architect firm and you've got some pages about architectural services in Florida, specifically in schools, okay? So if Landon starts to see that there is an increase in landing page deliveries for schools, architectural services for schools in Florida, then I can draw a conclusion that they were looking for that because that's the page that Google offered up, okay? And so the reason you use the landing page report that we're going to go to is to get an idea for what Google and others are offering up to users as they're searching, okay? So where do I find that information? Under behavior, okay? I'm going to expand behavior, and I'm going to come down to site content, and I'm going to come down to landing page specifically for this point, okay? So again, I just clicked on landing pages. Google is going to change the data it gave me. I'm looking at, for the sake of this report, the month of October, and it's telling me, most of you will see this, you'll either see /home, which is your home page. You may just see a slash, and that's your home page, okay? So for most companies, and I have yet to see one that this is not true, the home page will be the most active landing page. But start taking a look at the pages that follow. If you are a professional services page, you will be surprised perhaps at how often if you have team bios or information about your employees, you may start to see your people page ranking very high on landing pages because people want to see faces. They want to know who they're working with, and they want to learn more about professional service people. So for us, I always see our team page rank in the top 5 of our landing page because people they're curious about humans. You may see your contact page is very high. People are looking for phone numbers, they're looking for ways to get a hold of you, right? But you also may see a service page. And this is why, as we develop websites, we really want pages to be as specific as possible. So I don't know if there's I see Elena's online, so print Bangor. So, and I'm not visiting her site, I don't know, I'm just pulling out of the way. Let's say there's a posters page, let's say there's a brochures page, let's say that there's a trade show display page. I don't know. And if Elena starts to see in October and November that the trade show display page starts to get higher and higher on the landing page report, then she can draw the conclusion that more people are looking for that type of stuff, right? Because as I said before, the landing page is a pretty good signal, right? Telltale for what people are looking for online. So you will start to see at different parts of the year, you'll start to see different pages maybe jockeying up and down because your business probably has a normal ebb and flow. You will, years ago, we developed a campaign for a company called Mall Side Discount, and we created a character called the Tarp Guy, which went on to be kind of a local celebrity with a lowercase c. But the reason we did that is for looking at a Google report for 12 months, we saw that traffic was pretty consistent until we got to the month of October. And in the month of October and November, searches and landing pages for tarps specifically went up. So we knew that that season came into play. So we initially created the Tarp Guy to get in front of people come late September and into October to remind them and to sell more tarps. And so we saw that work. But what we did is we based that on data. So again, back to the very first slide, people are trying to hold you accountable. They want to know if what you're doing is working. When you are advertising on TV for tarps and you can see tarps as a landing page start to increase, you can draw a pretty confident conclusion that what you're doing in the marketplace is driving more people to the website. Right. And so again, you're going to see very different things. And if you want to see how your recent efforts are comparing to last year, again, don't forget that this date tool is very powerful. You can do any dates you want and then compare it to either the previous period or the previous year. And that really gives you some metrics to compare and contrast what you're doing now versus what you were doing last month or last year, back to making your job easier and making you look good in the eyes of others. If you sit down and you decide that this year we have to sell more tarps, right? Well, you're going to decide that in order to sell more tarps, I have to get more people involved in shopping for tarps. And so if you start to see that this year I've got a 20% increase in landing pages for the tarp page, then you can start to draw conclusions that hopefully this is resulting down in more inquiries and more sales. The bounce rate we talked about before. Remember, the bounce rate is measuring how many people see one page and then scoot, okay? So if you start to see a landing page grow, but the bounce rate goes up, right, then you know you've got to do some work on the landing page to make it more valuable for the consumer, right? You really want to get to the point where you're making a promise, right? You're being persuasive in the marketplace and making a promise. They're coming, they're visiting your website. You want them to do something other than just seeing that one page. And so if you start to see a bounce rate, anything north of 50, if you start to see a bounce rate north of 50 or 60% on a landing page that you really think is important to your business, then take a look at it through the eyes of your customer and see if I'm delivering value, if I'm answering questions, if I'm really following through on a promise, or just pretend you're that shopper. You know, maybe you're leaving stuff off that's very important for someone to make a decision. Remember, we live in a very instant gratification age where your competitor is just a click away. I can be lazy and do my shopping in 5 different places. We all do this. So I don't have to get in my car and walk anymore. But as the business, you don't get to control the conversation anymore. We have a very empowered, right, and research heavy customer who's in charge. So if they land on a website, they're not going to hunt and peck and go find the information if it's hard to find and not easy to use. So if you start to see landing pages become more popular because of something you're doing in marketing, but that bounce rate is not in your favor, then have someone look at it as a customer or take a look at some things. And here's where the metric comes into play. Here's where this comparative thing comes into play. If you notice that there's a page that has a high bounce rate and you want to get more people engaged when they drop there, start making some changes to the page, start doing some things that you think will add value, and then look at, you know, the time period. Let's give it a week, right? And then let's take a look at the previous week. So you can see micro moments if what you're doing is making a difference. So hopefully the information that you're getting from analytics is allowing you to make priorities in changing your site. And then you can actually see in real time, or as close to real time as possible, if your work is paying off. And why do I, by the way, why do I keep referencing the website as the proof that anything's working? Is because We live in a digital economy where Google really is the starting point for most of in fact, we go to Google, reports show that we go to Google more than we talk to people we know, right? We would rather ask Google a question than ask a real human being. And so it really is a true metric. It's not a stretch to say that website activity really is a measure of whether or not what you're doing is getting seen, working, and driving inquiries. The conversions, are they doing what we wanted them to do? Okay. So what we want them to do is going to change from company to company. But the basic and easiest thing to track is if they made a purchase or if they filled out a form of some sort. Okay. And so the contact form, it could be time on site, it could be button clicks. Some of these are much more advanced and I won't cover them here because it's getting into the weeds. But I will show you how to track a contact form, the lead form of some sort, right? So if you have a form on your website, I'm going to show you a very easy way that you can set up a goal or a conversion. Those are interchangeable in the eyes of analytics. So you can see who is submitting to your website in terms of where they came from, all of the things that we just talked about, what source they came from, how old they are, what they're interested in, how long they were on, what pages they visited, all that fun stuff. And then you can start to see of those people who is submitting more inquiries, okay? So I'm going to skip here and go back to analytics because this is what really gets a lot of people excited. I'm going to share here. Or if you have a contact form on your website, okay, again, the most basic conversion, the contact form conversion. Make sure you have this set up so that you can track it in analytics. If I am to fill out a form and submit it, okay, a couple things are going to happen. One, that email is going to be sent to you as the customer, as the business. You're going to know that that inquiry form was created. But there's also going to be something that happens to the customer. There's probably going to be a thank you message on the screen, okay? Here's what I would highly recommend is that all of you, if you're not doing it already, create a brand new page on your website called thank you. And when someone submits the form, don't say thank you on the same page, transfer them to that thank you page, okay? So here's what's happening. In theory, the only way that they would get to that thank you page is by filling out the form. That thank you page is not going to be on your website anywhere where I can click it. It's not going to be in the menu. It's not going to be a page that anyone's going to visit. It's literally going to say something like, your message has been received. Thank you. Someone will be in touch with you shortly, right? Very basic and very straightforward. But have that be its own page, have it be very unique. And here's why. Every page that you have on your website has a very unique URL. That's the website address, okay? And so what I can do is I can tell analytics that I want to measure the people that get to that thank you page. And we already know that the only way to get to that thank you page is to fill out the form, okay? And so if you have more than one form, let's go back to Landon. Let's say you've got a Florida form and you've got a Maine form, for instance. Perhaps you want to track how many inquiries are coming from Florida and how many inquiries are coming from Maine. So you want to set up a page on your website that allows you for your Florida location. Maybe there's a Florida inquiry form and a Maine inquiry form. I would create 2 thank you pages, and I would just call it, for your own organization, thank you Florida, thank you Maine. And then what you can do is you can come in here to Google Analytics and you can set up a goal for inquiry form conversions, okay? Again, tracking how many people get to that thank you page. And if you have a unique one, in Landon's case, if you have a unique one for Florida and a unique one for Maine, then you can tell Google that I want to track both of those. I can set up 2 goals, right? Or I see that Jonathan from TrueWord is on board. Let's say you have a maize forum, you have an apple forum, and then I know during Christmas seasons, you've got a different, so maybe you have different activities, strawberries in June, Christmas in December, apples, maybe you run contests, maybe you're running some sort of add to a certain list. I would create different forms for each of those activities and then a thank you page for each one. And then you can track that. And this is how you do it, okay? So what I'm doing right now, I just went to the admin screen down below and I can go over to goals and I can set up a new goal. So you can join me there too. If you get your admin screen, you're gonna see something in the admin screen that says goals. click goals and I can come over and go to a new goal. So I'm going to set up a new goal. And for the premise that we just talked about, I am going to create a contact goal, a contact form goal, okay? So I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to click contact us because that's the goal that I want to measure. I'm going to name it. And so in both the instances that I talked about with Jonathan and Landon and their business, whether it be Apple, Christmas, and Strawberry, or whether it be Maine or Florida, I want to name it something, right? And so I want to name it Florida Inquiries, right? And that's for you to track later. And then you want to have it be a destination because that thank you page that you created for each one of those forums is a destination. It's going to have an address, okay? And then, so I've done my goal setup. I've given it a name and a description, and I've told it that it's going to be a destination. And now what it's doing is it's saying, okay, what is that destination? So this is where you would go to that contact page that you created, go up to the top and copy the website address or whatever that might be. Make sure it says equals to because we want the exact address for the thank you page, and then paste it here, okay? And then hit save and you'll be good to go. And I'll show you one that I've already set up. So this is a contact us goal for me. I said that I wanted to have a contact us goal. I've named it contact us and I have a destination. And that destination is equal to, it has to be exactly this address, okay? And that's the address for my messages received page, okay? So I went to that page on my website, I copied it, pasted it here, and I hit save. And so what's going to happen now is I can take a look at landing pages, age, traffic sources, all the date ranges that we went through. And then one of the metrics, if you have a goal, is it's going to show you goals, okay? So it's going to tell you as you come through here, of all these people that came, how many went all the way through and executed that goal. It's a very powerful way to get folks to see what's happening with your website and who's doing what. I've got a few minutes here and I'm going to share two more things. Come back to the presentation screen. Okay, I've got a question, which is a good one. It's not stupid at all. No stupid questions. So it says, how is Google going to track between Maine and Florida, right? Can you explain how Google is going to tell the difference between the two? Good question. It's not. So it's going to take direction from you, which is why on your website, I'm going to assume that if I go to the Florida location, for instance, let me give you a very, let me go to my own site and I'll show you how I do it here, okay? So if you are going to go to digital marketing campaigns, can you see my own site? Someone give me a thumbs up as I do this. Okay, I've got multiple forms on my website. One of the pages I have is digital marketing campaigns. I optimize this for Google. I have stuff on here that answers questions that people would have. I've got some testimonials, but as I scroll back down, I have a forum. I have a call to action of talking with Kate. You can make a phone call or you can fill out this form, okay? So Diana, to your question, think of this as Florida, okay? So this might be serving Florida, okay? However you set it up. So I come back down and as somebody fills out this form, I have a thank you page in my Google Analytics, okay? That didn't show you, but it's there. I have a goal that says digital marketing thank you, okay? So when someone fills out this form and hits submit, it's going to go to a page that they can only get to if they filled out this form because it's specifically designed to be a thank you page for this digital marketing form, okay? So if I go to our business page, this is marketing for businesses. I do the same thing. I have myself and Elizabeth on here, and I have a form at some point, right? And if they fill this out, then what's going to happen is they're going to go to a business thank you page. So Google is not determining whether they came from Florida or Google's not determining whether they came from Maine. What Google is saying is you told me there's a thank you page and you labeled it something. So I'm just going to show you how many people went there. Okay, does that make sense, Diana? So for me, I can see how many people went to the business page and filled out a form, how many people went to the digital services page and filled out a form, because I'm tracking it that way and I'm labeling it. Google is very much garbage in, garbage out, which is why it's important for you to have labels if you're having more than one goal. Make sure that you label it so it makes sense to you later on, okay? Any other questions there? We're winding down and I actually successfully made it through the deck, right? And so just enough time to get to the question screen, so that's good. We could go on for another hour, but that's not what we're doing. So I've got a few minutes here. I hope I didn't confuse you. I really wanted to break it down. How do you get, can you guys see the campaign URL builder on the screen? Wait for a check marker. Okay, good. How do you track radio, TV, print? It's a little more advanced, but what I would do is I would go to the web, GoDaddy, Tierra, some sort of network solutions, and buy a URL, okay, or rent a URL, 20 bucks a year. If you're going to do TV, print, or radio, buy more than one if you want, but use that URL that's only being used on television. So let's say I'll just keep going back to Jonathan. Apples in September, right? Or corn maze, right? Cornmazesinmaine.com. Let's say that's available, and Jonathan buys cornmazesinmaine.com, does a radio ad, and says, I'm going to promote the heck out of, I'm not going to promote tree orgies, I'm going to promote cornmazesinmaine.com because I got that, right? So what I would do is I would come to this particular page, the URL builder, and I would create what's called a URL, a campaign URL. So here, put the page that you want someone to land on. Don't make it the home page, make it somebody else. So in Jonathan's case, it would be the Corn Maze page. And then just answer these questions: campaign source and medium and name, right? So maybe it's television, and maybe it's your TV ad, October, whatever, WVII, WAVI, whatever. It's going to give you a website address as you fill this out. And then as you register your domain, you might need some help on this one, but cornmazesinmaine.com, I'll show you, for instance. So I'm filling this out. I'm going to put, this is radio, right? And this might be WVOM. And I keep going down. You'll notice that down here, it's building out a URL, okay? So as you build this, and just Google campaign URL builder if you want, but if you can see that website address, go ahead and grab it. But if you Google campaign URL or campaign UTM builder, you'll find it. As you start to fill in these specific questions and answers, you'll get a website address here. Copy it, okay? And then Jonathan's, I'm going to send it to the Corn Maze page. So have the person, or if it's you that registered the domain name, point that domain name to this URL, okay? The user won't see it. They'll just see cornmazesinmaine.com. They'll end up on the Corn Maze page, but you'll see in analytics this, okay? You'll start to see, back to the sources and channels and traffic report, you'll start to see sources and mediums that are related to that campaign that you're doing on radio or print or on television, knowing that Google is logging every time I type in cornmazesinmaine.com and I end up on the Corn Maze page, it's going to log the information that you presented here because you're forwarding it to that very specific generated campaign URL down here. So I know this is kind of advanced stuff, but listen, it's very easy. If you go here and you just fill in the blanks, it's going to give you this particular URL. Go register a domain for your business or for a marketing campaign that you're going to run. That's you're only using there, and that's very, very important, right? You're only using it in one spot. And so you can say with confidence that I'm running on radio, I'm running on television, and then have it point to this address, and you'll know that the traffic coming to your website from that campaign is measurable. Now you can actually go back and answer to your boss, or answer to yourself, or answer to somebody else. Yes, it is working, or no, it's not working. I didn't see anybody come to the website. Right? I hope that makes sense. But that's a great way to track offsite TV, radio, print, whatnot. Right? Is Google Analytics free or paid? It's absolutely free. It's a free service out of Google Analytics. There are other tools that you can use and subscribe to that will take analytics data and make it even more powerful, even more user-friendly. And some of those are free and some of those are paid. but what I'm showing you here, as far as Google Analytics in and of itself, it's free. When you sign up with using your Google account, it's going to give you a little snippet of code. You send that snippet of code to whoever's working on your website, or if you're working on your website, you can put it into the template, and then within 24 hours, you'll start to see data. Yep. Hope that answers your questions. Any other questions as we're wrapping down here? I want to make sure that this is as valuable as it can be for you. Yeah, okay. I don't see any coming through, but thank you. Hopefully it was helpful. Let me know if it was. Shoot me an email if you have any questions, any of the stuff we talked about or anything else that came up. If you want to dig in, shoot me a note. Selfish promotion, we work on this all the time with clients. So if you're not a client, I'd welcome you to talk about it. But this isn't a sales pitch. Again, hope it had value, and you'll keep you posted too. If there's other webinars coming up and other workshops, there'll be a number of them. If you want to jump on, I'd love to see you again. So with that, I'll say goodbye.